everybody knows that's been tuning into the show this offseason. They're aware that I and the both of us are big fans of Avery Johnson and the capabilities of this team heading into 2024. Most importantly, for the fact that there is no Oklahoma or Texas that's standing in their way. Now, there are new faces in the Big 12 that will provide resistance that they will probably face in the Big 12 championship game. They have a very favorable schedule. And I think the fact that most of their big losses are Cooper Beebe and Ben Sinnott, they moved on to the NFL. They're very talented players. The rest of their roster, I think, is going to gel nicely around some of these young playmakers. The young playmakers I'm talking about is the uber talented quarterback, Avery Johnson, who I think could be a rushing and passing threat if everything goes well with his development. And Dylan Edwards, who they added and who's going to be playing alongside running back DJ Giddens. That could be a monstrous two-headed backfield, maybe the best in the Big 12, best backfield in the Big 12. I really think with the way that this team has progressed and just been steady, hard-nosed, Chris Kleiman is a great coach. They're good enough to go, I'm going to say it, Blake, I think that they can go 11-1, 10-2. I think 11-1 is 1,000% on the table with the games on their schedule, which we'll get into a second. I'm very bullish for the Kansas State Wildcats and what they can do in 2024.
Okay. I don't disagree with a lot of what you just said. However, I do think that Will Howard leaving and Avery Johnson coming in to be a full-time starter, there is question marks about him throwing the football. Joe, you can't be how do I want to say this? You can't be one-dimensional. Okay. And I think will it help them in the Big 12 versus most teams? Yes. Their offensive line, Joe, senior at right tackle, senior at right guard, senior at center, senior at left guard, senior transfer in Easton Kilty at left tackle. So their experience along the offensive line, they're not going to be confused. This is guys that have a lot of starts. They have a lot of experience, which we talked about earlier about how experience wins teams a lot of games. The issue that I have here is, and you know that this is just how I roll. This is not a shot at Avery Johnson. When you play a team like Utah, when you play a team that can be very dynamic on what they do on the defensive side of the ball, Joe, you cannot be one-dimensional. Now, I'm not saying the kid's a bad passer. I'm not saying that he can't throw. I'm not saying that he can't move. I'm not saying that he can't do it. Joe, historically, though, we can talk crap about Will Howard all the live long day. Every time you go to a new young quarterback, it doesn't always bode well in big-time games. There's a lot of things that they've never seen before. The game gets faster. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying I think we need to wait before what you are saying, being very bullish that they'll go 11-1, because there is a lot of turnover here now. Look, I'm not trying to make this a Will Howard segment. I really am not. Joe, they legitimately, got very one-dimensional last year. And here's another thing. Not only do you have a new quarterback, you have a new OC. And I think that for young quarterbacks in a system that's very new, I don't know if things won't be rocky if they get a good opponent early, right? Like if there's a very good opponent early, which I don't.
Well, this is the important part here is looking at their schedule. They don't have many difficult early matchups.
I don't have their schedule pulled up, and I didn't write it down. What is their schedule?
I don't have their full schedule written down, but the games that I wrote down that are difficult games, there's not many of them. They have Arizona at home is probably the earliest one at home. They have Oklahoma State at home. They travel to West Virginia, which could be a little bit of a sneaky game. They have Kansas.
But Neil Brown has turned that program around, buddy.
Yeah. But I don't think that comparing those two rosters, I don't think that West Virginia's.
I'm not saying, but defensively.
They have Kansas at home, and then they go to Iowa State. I think that they not only were given most of the favorable, difficult opponents, they weren't given Utah. They don't have to face
Mm-hmm.
Colorado. I know that we were kind of clowning them in the open, but they don't have to see them. And if they turn out to be a difficult team, and most of the times that they have to play these teams, they're playing them at home. So that's a huge advantage for him. And for what we're talking about here with a young quarterback in Avery Johnson. And also, by the way, for Oklahoma fans, if they do want to get pissed off at us saying this because they're more than upset over what we said about Jackson Arnold, there's a big difference between Avery Johnson stepping in with a lot of veteran offensive linemen playing in the Big 12 and Jackson Arnold in his situation playing in the SEC. There's a very, very big difference.
All right. Well, I have it pulled up here at Tulane.
Dudes, Tulane's not. They're not going to lose to Tulane.
I didn't say that they were going to lose.
Okay.
I just said at Tulane.
Okay. Yeah, they go to Tulane without Willie Fritz.
Okay. Don't act like that they didn't replace that for them. They didn't replace it with a good head coach. Okay. At BYU, they do have Colorado at home. They go to Colorado.
I don't know.
On October the 12th, they go to.
I'm still not worried about Colorado, though, for this
game. Well, they have back-to-back games at Colorado, at West Virginia, at Houston, and Cincinnati, at Iowa State.
That's a very favorable schedule.
It is a very favorable schedule. It's one of the easier schedules that you and I have looked at. The part that I would get here is I need to see Avery Johnson do more things in the pocket.
And that's a completely understandable concern.
Now, running the football, I think that they're going to be dynamic as shit. I think that they're going to do a lot of really good things. They got a really good offensive line. You look, they had Dante Cephas, who was a transfer. They got in a couple of transfers too. Shadley Demps, Jock Shadley Demps is a guy that came in along with Quentin Rice, who was another guy. Look, you're having to replace your big weapon in Sinet, okay, with Garrett Oakley. So, look, I'm just not – I don't know how to feel about them. I'm very wait and see. I don't like the combo of replacing a coordinator with a new quarterback. I don't. Not for this kid. And – I got to tell you, would I be fine with you saying 11-1 if Will Howard was still there? Yes, I would.
No, come on. No, we can't do this just because of the – again, I'm not – I've said this before. I'm not in on Will Howard, and I think that some of their deficiencies were highlighted by the fact of his performance.
Their deficiencies also were rooted in – a lot of Kansas State fans weren't necessarily – I mean, they were upset, but I don't think they were completely upset that Colin Klein left. Joe, they sideline to sideline was a big issue for them last year. Look, it doesn't matter what their schedule is. There's going to be a couple of games that he is not going to be able to get things off running the football, and he's going to have to throw the ball down the field. Joe, the Heisman Trophy winner this past year, we'll talk about Jalen Daniels in the same light in just a moment, okay? Like, pick whichever one. But mobile guys are going to always, Joe, this always happens. Somebody schemes something up where he's unable to get things going. You know, like the most infamous one of this, if you remember, what was it, 2012, I believe, when Cam Newton goes into Alabama, he has, I think, -2 rushing yards at the half. They can't get anything moving on the ground, and you're talking about arguably the best. Hold on. You arguably have one of the best running quarterbacks of all time. There are multitudes. I'm just saying that was the pinnacle. I'm not saying that this kid is facing anything like that. That was the pinnacle of a guy that there's going to be a game that gets schemed up against that you're going to have to start throwing the football. Are you 1,000% confident, Joe, that he is there? Because I don't know if I've seen it from him yet.
I understand to bring up. Yeah, obviously he hasn't played that much as a starting quarterback. The bowl game that he had, frankly, was the most impressive out of any of the young quarterbacks that I saw. I think that more than Jackson Arnold and Nico, I think he was the most impressive. But I get what you're saying about how he is going to be pressed in difficult situations. But we also have to remember the conference that he's playing in. This is in the SEC. He's not going up against any defensive coordinators that we're looking at on this schedule here that are really going to give him much of a difficult fight.
I disagree with that.
Who?
I think going to West Virginia at night when defensively they like Joe, you're talking about.
They don't have any dudes on the defense is fine. Like I'm not like they don't have any.
Joe, they're a top 50 defense, buddy, and they returned 9 of 11 starters.
West Virginia was a top 50 defense last year.
Yeah, bud. That's how they won.
Wait, and
I'm not mistaken. Either them or Virginia Tech mixed up. Maybe my mind.
You have to be mixing them up with total defense or with Virginia Tech. Let me look it up.
Maybe I am.
But besides West Virginia, who else scares you? Like I don't think that there's any really creative defensive coordinators that have been brought up in
Arizona scares me. Going to BYU would scare me. Oklahoma State, when you get into the month of October,
dude, their defense was disgusting last year. Their defense was terrible last year.
Who? Oklahoma State?
Yeah.
Wasn't terrible against Oklahoma.
That was the one good game that they played.
Yeah, Quinn, you were some issues in the second half.
What was the final score of that game?
Yeah, I mean, tomato. I don't know, man. Look, maybe I'm not bullish on them like you are. I think that they? Let me say it like this.
It was Virginia Tech, by the way. Virginia Tech was top
Virginia
20
Tech was
total
top
defense. Yeah.
Okay. See, I knew it was one of them, but I was wrong on the one that it was. Look, can they and probably would they win the conference? Yes, I think there's a high probability that they can. I like the kid. I like the kid a lot. I'm just not sold on. Look, there's a difference in, was he good in the Big 12? Okay, cool. But, I mean, I don't know how I want to say this, and because it's going to come off so bad. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Look, hey, I understand what you're trying to say, that it is a situation and a circumstance where young quarterback, new offensive coordinator, we have to at least take a breath before we jump in. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just trying to
name one that took massive steps.
I couldn't name off the top of my. Who was the OC when Bryce Young's first year?
Bill O'Brien, but Bill O'Brien was already there.
What? No.
Mm-hmm.
No, he wasn't. That was okay. I don't feel like checking that. That's
2021, right?
I'm not going to sit here and waste time checking that. I understand what you're saying, that it's okay to take a breath and not to like get super gung ho. But I think that in the new modern version of the Big 12, where there's no longer these recruiting behemoths, and it's going to be whoever puts the most points up on the board, I think, except for what Utah does. That is enough for them to go to 11-1, and they don't play Utah during the regular season. And I'm not saying that they're going to win the conference per se.
If they go, but you're saying they're going 11-1.
It's not a difficult schedule that they're facing.
All right. That is true. I can't argue that. And defensively, which we haven't talked about, Joe, they are littered with seniors. They are littered with guys returning.
Yeah.
And look, maybe you're right. Maybe you are right. But here's look, I just don't know if I can sell in on them when I don't know about a kid. And I know that from a running perspective, I think he's one of the best athletes in the country. Legitimately, I believe that. I think they're going to be really good defensively. Now, they have some back end things, like Fabry, is a freshman that's going to have to start in that nickel spot, apparently. But, Jude, senior, junior, senior, freshman. That's their defense. Backup wise, sophomore, junior, sophomore, junior, senior. They are littered with seniors. And I agree with you. Experience wins. But I don't know. Look, I thought about – let me say it like this. I think I finally got it. I was thinking about this all day when how did I want to frame the Kansas State deep dive? Do I think the kid is – you know what I think he is? I think he might be 2022, like a 2022 Jaden Daniels, where when things got rough in the beginning of a season and teams schemed around him running the football, that was an issue. Joe, to be honest with you, that was an issue with guys like Lamar. Like if we're going to put him in the category, regardless of what the schedule is, regardless, schematically, there are teams that are going to try to take it away. And if you're that one-dimensional, Joe, it's more easy to take away the run and stacking the box than it is him dudes throwing it all over the place. That's because it's more space. You're not in a tighter window. You got to guard more area if you're throwing the ball all over the place, right? Like that historically is how football has played out. However, like, Joe, if I play them week 1, you know what I'm doing? I'm loading the box and telling the kid to beat me. Man-to-man on the outside. You might have, Keegan Johnson. You have Jace Brown. You got Dante Cephas. I am going to make those 3 dudes beat me. I'm going to legitimately line up and stop everything that Avery Johnson does. And I understand your argument in reference to that their schedule is very light. The problem that I can't get out of my mind is, on paper, you are correct. But there are a lot of good coaches that are out there and defensive coordinators that are smart enough to know to stack the box, right?
Yeah, but wait, you're saying that so ambiguously, though. Like, that's my problem with this. You're saying that, like, a lot of defensive coordinators, or there's going to be defensive coordinators, but, like, again, I look at who they're playing, and they're not in the SEC. They're not in the Big Ten. They're playing a conference that no longer has the 2 teams that have actually put up fights defensively.
So they played in damn near the same conference last year, and they had a lot of the same struggles.
And they didn't have continuity at quarterback.
Okay, fair. But when the kid did come in and the kid did play, what was the problem that they had with him?
He was a true freshman.
Okay. But
he was a true freshman.
So the last show that we did was about Jackson Darnold, was it not?
It was.
If we're going to compare, okay, well, the kid was a true freshman and Jackson Arnold, why can't, like, what we were saying the other night was, what am I supposed to base it off of, correct? Our conversation about Jackson Arnold was, what do we base it off of? Joe, I've seen teams exactly in this exact same conference do it to him. Am I wrong in saying that?
Not really, but at the same time, I just think you're being a little hyper specific on some of these things. Like a little bit.
I don't know what hyper specific means. I'm from the South.
I'm trying to say that I feel like you're in a vacuum. Yes, running quarterback who is a true sophomore,
a true starter,
first year starter, learn how to throw a little bit better, and we're trying to figure out what his receiver room's like. All that stuff. It's fine to say, yeah, defenses are going to load the box. But I don't see a lot of teams that have the linebackers and the defensive linemen that are going to, even if they approach it this way, really completely eliminate the run game.
Joe,
we're talking about a 3-headed monster here.
I mean, it's only 66 passing attempts. I get this.
Yeah.
Okay, 56% of his passes.
He was a true freshman. We're watching the tape and we're just going off of
okay.
what looks good, what needs to improve. There's an offseason that needs to happen here.
And a new system that he's got to learn. I mean, look, the truth is what people enamored themselves by was he gave all. Now, let me fast forward here. You know what his ceiling could be? What I see him as and the play style? Guess. Before I say something, guess. Who do you think that he is that we've seen in college football that was electric? I'll even give you a hint.
Okay. Oh, he's not Johnny Manziel.
Joe, the way that kid runs.
He's bigger than Johnny Manziel.
No, that's okay. He's an inch taller. Johnny Manziel was 6'1".
He was 5'11".
Okay. I mean, if we're going to go by what the what do you call that? Media guy says, okay, he's 5'11". He was 6 foot at the combine. What doesn't matter. He does give off those vibes of him scrambling and running all over the place. A white dude that's just absolutely going berserk.
I don't know if I make that comparison, but
who would you compare him to? This is coming to an Avery Johnson session, by the way. We ain't bringing down anything else.
Yeah, because you won't let us.
Okay, well,
I think it reminds me a lot. I think it reminds me a little bit, quite a bit about Riley Leonard. I think he really reminds me of Riley Leonard, who last year was still developing as a passer. and was a
okay,
really
well,
good
then
runner.
you just made my point.
He got hurt. He didn't have he did not have the supporting cast that Avery Johnson has.
Yeah, fair. I mean, he doesn't have a guy like Dylan Edwards that I think is a big addition from Colorado, right? I don't think that well, I can't. Well, it's tough because he had a better defense overall. I mean, that's what got Elko the A&M job, right? I mean, supporting cast. I mean, as a team
defense.
Yeah, I mean, they're play away defensively against Louisville from winning that game. Literally,
right.
So, fair. Okay. You don't think that there's a game on the schedule that somebody's going to take away them running the football and he's going to have to throw it to win it?
I think if anybody it's Iowa State, just because we know that they're pretty coherent defensively and coaching wise when it comes to defense.
Joe, what if he's got to get in the shootout with Arizona? Which quarterback you taking in that one?
I would take Avery Johnson. I have no idea what to expect from Brent Brennan. I really don't. And I'm not afraid of him.
Yeah, you know exactly what to expect. Remember last year,
you were slightly above average at San Jose State.
Dude, you were clowning USC because San Jose State put up 40 against them.
Yeah, but I was clowning USC because of the point of the fact that they weren't very good. That USC was playing against a mid-level G5 team, and that was the result that they put on the field.
I mean, can anybody win at San Jose State?
I mean, it's
not been done before. No, nobody's ever done it.
Sure.
All right. Let's go to very quickly, go to the defense. Things you like, you don't like.
You mentioned it earlier. They're bringing back a lot of starters from last year. I think that there's not necessarily a lot of premier elite NFL guys on that defense, but the fact that they're bringing back all this experience, this is why I'm in. This is why I think the conversation got directed away because we focused on Avery Johnson a ton, but I look at the supporting cast and I think if there is
don't blame me for all of our issues.
Well, someone has to cause them. My point is that if there's a true sophomore that has a good supporting cast and a good situation to succeed, I think he fits the bill. And more importantly, not going to really face really, really difficult adversity. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.